listening to this long enough to know what an x-axis is. You're a bluffer.
I know what an x-axis is, but I don't know what it has to do with objects on a sphere. The axis would be leading to the center of the Earth, right?
No.
Yes.
On a piece of ground.
Brenda, I would like you to please show me buildings that are arcing away from you, that are leaning away from you. Show me that.
Well, how much?
Show me where somebody measured that out, please.
Yeah, you can find that on the internet, but how much do you think there would be?
You're obviously so much better at the internet than I am because I'm a stupid flat earther. So please show me that where you see
you
a
might not
building
be
curved
stupid,
away from
but
you.
you're blinded by your ideology.
Brenda wants to hear the mainstream answer. Is one degree per 69 miles, right?
I'm blinded by my ideology when I was a glober for most of my life. When I believed the same nonsense that you believe, but now I don't. So I've been blinded by my ideology. And that's what makes sense to you?
Yeah.
What about the
so how much? So the question would be, how much would you expect to see, right? So if we construct a series...
Well, I'm on a ball, right? So I would expect to see some type of curve, some type of leaning away from me, something. Yes. I haven't seen anything. If you could show me that right now, that would be cool, and I could just go back to being a glober, and I can go back to other shit. But until I find that, here I am.
If you haven't seen it, does that follow that it isn't there?
There are people trying to prove it, right?
No, but
you guys come in here every day trying to prove to us that a flat horizon that we all see is flat is a actual curve.
We're not trying to prove
That's what you guys are trying.
Just a game.
It's exactly what you guys are trying to do. It's a game.
We know we can't.
It's a game that you guys take very seriously because you come in here every day for this.
Well, you were here before me, mate, today, so.
So the question,
I don't know about
there's a couple of questions as far as this horizon thing goes. The way that it goes is that Nathan and Riley and Arwen block and kick people, and
what is that? What does Nathan and Riley and any of them have to do with the horizon?
Are incapable of understanding simple concepts. But the problem here is, so if we're talking about this tilt away from the observer that we would expect on a sphere, so you construct a series of towers, all of a set, they're all perpendicular to the surface of a globe,
like wind turbines.
You expect them to sort of tilt away from you as the observer, correct?
Like the turbines, right? Can you mute, please, the real Morty?
What do you mean, Mark? Show us.
It'd be very, very minuscule.
Well,
I'm going to go live in a minute.
Apparently, Chocolates just doesn't want to talk about this, I guess.
I think it was Nadia. Just put you on mute, Nadia, just for the start of the show.
Did you ask me a question?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the show and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Was Not Was, Adam, Nadia, Mark, Jose, Dawn Treader, Dan, Chocolate Saying, and Brenda. Good to have you all.
You.
Buenos días.
Hello. It's quite hard to have a conversation, Nathan, because you mute me a lot of the time.
Well, yes, he does that.
So are you guys here to critique the production of the show, or actually offer some sort of evidence of R, perhaps? Maybe you've got that?
Do you know what R is?
Riley.
So about the evidence for R? Brenda?
R is the radius of the Earth, right?
Right.
So you would have to measure that.
Right.
So how would you go about measuring the radius of the Earth?
I
couldn't give a crap.
You tell me
you tell me it's your assertion that we have one.
Yeah, you're the globe expert. You tell me.
You would measure it.
Okay, yes. How do you do that?
Right? So that would be an observation.
No, you just said that. You just said measure.
Yes. A measurement is an observation. If I measure,
measurement is a measurement.
If I measure the width of the doorway, I observe it. I get a ruler and I measure it, right?
You need to measure the radius then. So you need to measure the radius like you'd measure the width of the doorway. If you want the width of the doorway, you run a tape measure along the doorway. If you want the radius, you run a tape measure along the radius, right?
Right.
So have you run a tape measure along the radius?
Well, we can't do that. So we might need to use a different method because there's other ways of measuring things, right?
I don't know. It tends to be the case that people in your community say that you are backed by science.
Yeah, we are.
Excellent. So what's your scientific evidence of the radius value?
Well, you'd measure it. You'd take a scientific measurement of R.
Sorry. So measurements are not scientific evidence. They're just measurements. It's just running an decided value of something on a tape, for example. Could be inches, could be millimeters, could be all number of different types and scales. Whatever scale you decide to assign to measure that thing. And then you go away and you measure it. That's not science.
Yeah, that would be data. That's data.
Not science, though.
Well, it would be scientific data.
No, it'd just be data.
Either way, it's data.
No,
right.
It's just
so
data, right? So it's not
data.
scientific, right? So have you run a tape measure down the radius? That's how you get a measurement of something.
That would be one way, but there are other ways.
That would be the way of doing it. So there's one way of measuring a doorway, which is running a tape measure along it. So that would be the way that you measure something.
That would
you
be
just
one way.
That.
So if I want to measure a tree, I could run a tape measure along it, but maybe the tree is too tall or too far away. So then I might need to use a different method to measure the height of a tree.
No, you could still use a tape measure. You just climb up a ladder? Maybe? Is a ladder not a good idea? Do you think they use ladders when they measure trees?
No, there's no need to do that.
There's no need to do that. So they don't use ladders. They just do a different method, do they? Okay, righto. So why did you give us the example of measuring a doorway? What was that all about? I don't really understand why you gave us that example. You've got a doorway that needs measuring.
Right. Because I can't physically measure the tree. I can measure a doorway, but I can't.
Yeah, you can. You can just climb up it with a ladder and run a tape measure down it. What part of that don't you understand? There may be other ways to do it, but you most definitely can get a ladder and run a tape measure down it, I assure you. I could,
but I don't want to.
I don't care what you want to do. You can, unlike what you have just asserted, run a tape measure down a tree. That's how you measure things. Like your doorway example. You understand the doorway example? Do I need to repeat your own example back? If you've got a doorway that needs measuring, Brenda, you just run a tape measure across the gap in the door.
Right.
Right.
I could use a tape measure to measure.
Yeah, you could use a tape measure like you gave in an example of measuring a doorway. Can you do that in the same way as the example you gave with a doorway?
Well, It's the same with, say, a tree. I could use a tape measure. I could use a tape measure to measure a tree.
Excellent. So have you used a tape measure to measure the radius?
So I use trigonometry to measure the height of a tree that's far away and taller than I can climb. So I use trigonometry to measure the height of a tree, and I can use trigonometry to measure the distance r.
Can you see the whole tree?
Yes.
And can you see the whole Earth?
Well,
is that a no? I can't see the whole Earth like I can see the whole tree. Is that a no, Brenda?
I can.
You can't even answer simple questions with.
I know. You can see the whole Earth. Brenda, the spaceman.
Yes.
You could just see the whole Earth. You can't even answer that honestly, because you know you can't.
Not here on Earth.
Oh right, that's a bit of a problem. So far we've had a doorway example that doesn't actually compare at all to measuring the radius, and then we've had a tree example which doesn't at all compare to measuring a radius.
Because I use trigonometry to measure the tree. And
I just use a tape measure, like your example of a doorway that you gave.
Right.
Right, and we needed the whole tree to do the trig, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right, can you see the whole Earth, spaceman?
No, we can't.
Oh, right, so your tree example's kind of spurious then, isn't it? You understand me, dipshit? Do you want to give another example? Or are we going to have a third example of another crap way of measuring things that you can't do to get a radius value? Or will this go on indefinitely with endless examples of ways of measuring things which aren't the way you can measure the Earth?
It's a progression.
Oh, is it really? Let's not worry about these words like progression and mathematics. You claim to be backed by science. Science.
So you can measure
science, darling.
Science.
Science. That's what we need. What's your scientific evidence?
Right. You can measure R.
No. What's your scientific evidence? What you can't
measure R.
You can't. You've just said you use a tape measure. Then we went through the fact that you can't use a tape measure. Then you said you use trig. Then we pointed out that you haven't got the whole Earth on view.
Yes.
Yes. So what the bloody hell are you talking about? Stop babbling about this utter crap.
You don't need the whole Earth to measure R.
Oh, really? We don't need the whole tree then? Right? We can just dig a little hole next to the tree and then measure the tree, can we?
We don't need the whole Earth to measure R.
Do we need the whole tree? You said you need the whole tree. Why did you say you need the whole tree then?
It's not important.
You brought it up. You brought up the tree. I didn't bring up this tree.
Because we use trigonometry to measure the tree.
But we can see the tree. You've just explained this. What the bloody hell are you going on about? Yeah. Are we going to get a decent answer out of you? Or are we actually get to the stage where if you're going to say that you're using sticks and shadows, that we point out that the guy who did that presupposed you was on a sphere? Will we get to that stage quickly?
He didn't. No, that's not true. He didn't do that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He said all the same things you dickheads say. If the Earth is a sphere, then my measurement is thus.
No, he didn't presuppose it.
Yeah, he did. He presupposed it and then made a measurement with sticks in the ground. He had a presupposed sphere. If he didn't, he'd have got a different result if he'd have just done it with plain trig. But he didn't do it with plain trig. He did it with spherical trig because he presupposed he was on a sphere. What part of that don't you get? Are you really this stupid and deluded that you don't actually know your own religious background?
No, I know it. You don't.
I've just told it you, and you're telling me no. So you can tell me no all you like, darling. Yeah? I'll say, yeah, that's true. You've got a presupposition. You start by believing you're on a sphere, and then work backward from there.
No, he didn't start believing he was on a sphere. He knew he was on a sphere.
Oh, I see. So you trust what he knew. He didn't do a damn thing. He just knew it before he even made the measurement. But that's not a presupposition because you used the word no.
It was not a presupposition. It was a deduction.
Oh, really? So nothing scientific, nothing measured, just deduced. He just deduced it was a sphere, right?
Yes.
Oh, right. Well, Poirot, your powers of deduction aren't very scientific, I'm afraid.
No, they are. This deduction is scientific.
Really? So police don't get it wrong. Yeah? Their powers of deduction are infallible, are they?
Deduction, yes. Deduction
is infallible. Oh, right. Is that right? No, afraid not. Yeah, we've got methodology for things like that. We establish cause and effect with the scientific method. That's why I asked you for scientific evidence. Yeah? There's a very clear reason why I use the words I use. It's not because I want to hear a deduction. I don't give a crap what this idiot deduced.
He deduced he was on a sphere.
Hello.
It was a deduction.
What's up, bro?
So what? I'm asking for evidence, not deduction. Yeah? I don't care what he deduced.
But you can't measure the Earth's radius directly with like a tape measure, so you're using indirect measurements. The only danger is you might be making assumptions at that point. So at that point, logic has to come into play, and we have to test the logical underpinnings of your deductions and your logical assumptions about the Earth's radius and curvature. That's all the flat earthers are saying.
I would just like Brenda in plain English to tell us how somebody measured the distance from the center of the Earth to the surface. Plain English. Simple question.
Plain English.
Because it's plain English, simple question. It's been figured out. It's been figured out already. Just tell us.
Right. It was figured out.
How did somebody figure out the distance from the center of the Earth to the surface?
Right.
Please.
It was accurately measured in 1735 by two parties from France. One went to Chile, one went to Alaska.
Which one of them went to the center of the Earth?
One party went to Chile at the equator. Of course, I wasn't there, but this is where paranoia comes in, of course.
Sorry, the equator of what?
One went to Chile near the equator.
Yeah, what equator of what?
Of the one down below the equator in the southern hemisphere.
Oh, the southern hemisphere. So they already know they're on a sphere. That's interesting. They went to the southern hemisphere. Isn't that a presupposition that they're already on a sphere was? That seems a bit weird that they would know they were going to the southern hemisphere if they were making this measurement.
Right. Well, as they were trying to figure out the actual radius.
Sounds like they already knew they were on a ball was. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, maybe they just deduced it before they started taking any measurements. It all sounds very familiar.
Okay, that's fair and well and good.
No, it's not fair and well and good, you absolute idiot. Your presupposition is the reason I'm here, tearing you guys a new asshole on a daily basis, because you've got this stupid idea that is acceptable to just assume things, to accept the other idiot assumptions and call them deductions like it's acceptable. It's not okay, you absolute blithering idiot. What part of this don't you globeheads get? You assume you're on a sphere and it's not acceptable by me. That's why I'm here, yeah? Just get it through your thick skulls. We want scientific evidence of this stuff.
It's not an assumption.
I'm trying to go with you with what you're saying.
It is an assumption. You have no scientific evidence and no measurements. You only have the presumption you're on a sphere followed up by measurements based on that presupposition. It's simple.
Okay.
It's not based on a presupposition. It's an observation.
Okay, no. Don't worry. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Nathan.
I do worry about it, you absolute idiot. How many times have I got to say this? Your presupposition is your foundation of your religious belief. You don't like it. You want to move past it. You want to forget about it for a minute and tell me that it's based on an observation as opposed to giving me anything scientific to back this bullshit. You don't have anything. You just have presumption. That's all you have. It's an absolute outrage.
Well, he's not going to let you talk.
Nathan. Brenda.
Okay, Brenda, I'll be quiet.
Brenda, just 1 second. Nathan, you got outraged that I said the northern and southern hemisphere. So if the Earth's flat, what are they going to be called? The northern flat and the south flat?
Who cares? They're not spherical. You presuppose the Earth is a sphere when you make your measurements. So the guys in the boat travel to Chile and they get to the hemisphere and then they start making their measurements.
Simple. Nathan presupposes that the Earth is flat.
No, hang on, Brenda. You haven't been to the ice wall. Nathan.
Sorry, this is a straw man. So claiming we have an ice wall, claiming I haven't been there, this is a straw man argument. I'm not interested in your straw man argument. I don't assert we've been to any ice wall. I've not been to an ice wall. I don't claim there is one. I don't know what's there.
So you presuppose the Earth is flat?
No, we have the same measurements as you, Dick Brain. Yeah? We take the same measurements as you. You start with a flat plane too, and then insert an R value. We both start with the same premise and measurements, you idiot.
No, I don't.
What do you mean, no? Yes, we start with the same measurements you do, you insert R.
No.
Hang on.
What do you mean, no? Do you want to actually give me an argument, Brenda, or are you just going to say no? Because no is not an argument.
Nathan's ignoring me for a purpose.
I'm not ignoring you. You've given me a straw man and told me I've not been to the South Pole.
I told you the other night that you can observe a chemtrail on your horizon and it proves the Earth's not flat.
Oh, really? Does it? Well, if you want to believe that, then you go ahead, dickhead.
You can observe it for yourself, but you can't do it.
Wowee. And you know all about what that plane is doing, do you? You know where it is in the sky, you know how fast it's going, you know what it's doing. Yeah? Of course you don't. You have no idea. It's travelling in a flat line, on a flat plane, and that's all there is to it. Yeah? The horizon has risen to your eye level on that plane. There's nothing about the Earth that makes it seem in any way spherical, and there is no observed curvature, and the only way you get to curvature is to presuppose you're on a sphere. And when things don't match up, you tell us refraction's taken over and flattened it all back out again.
Yeah. Like, you guys just not realizing your arguments are just crap at this point.
Why chemtrails straight then when they're on the horizon?
Say that again.
Jazz Conda was going on about the chemtrails, proving it's a sphere. But whenever you see them coming over, they're always straight.
Everything is straight.
I know.
You don't see a curve anywhere.
Yeah, I know.
This is their problem. Like, it's beyond ridiculous that these guys still think there's curvature out there somewhere. You would have seen it by now, guys.
Presuppose it.
You can measure the curvature. You can measure R.
No, you can't. Yeah? You guys give us dip angles. Yeah? You guys give us the horizon. Something not physical. It's bullshit.
Yeah. The very thing you're telling us is curvature is flat.
No, it's not.
This is how ridiculous. Oh my god.
Brenda's got no arguments today. All she's got is no, and no, it's not. That's all she's really got to offer. It is pretty pathetic. You know, we ask her for scientific evidence, and the best she can do is tell us how to measure a door, and then tell us that's not how you measure the radius. Tell us how you measure a tree, then tell us that's not how you measure the radius.
Right.
Yeah, right. You've got crap arguments today, Brenda. I don't really get why you're even here. It seems like you've got literally nothing to offer to this panel. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I don't understand it. What's the point of even being
I know
here?
you don't understand, but those were examples.
How do you do that? How does the doorway and then the tree and then the radius
measuring the Earth?
Okay, so now we're up to the radius.
You use
how do they do that?
trigonometry.
No.
We went through this. These are crap arguments that we went through already, Brenda.
Well, they're just fine.
Okay, well, if you want to accept that you've had somebody go with a tape measure and measure the radius like they measured your door, or use trig like they measured the tree, which you have to be able to see in order to do the trig on it, if you want to accept all those things, Brenda, which are absolute shite, then you're entitled to believe those things, but they're spurious.
You use trig to measure R.
Okay.
And you can do that without having to see the whole Earth.
That's the thing you're measuring. So presumably you're now going to tell me how you measure the sun, right?
You only need a section to measure the curvature of the Earth.
Right.
With to measure R.
With what? The sun?
You take the rays of the sun.
Right. So we're talking about sticks and shadows. This is based on a presupposition, Brenda. I've already gone through this. So in order to make this measurement, if you just did plain trig, you'd get a different result. But because you have a presupposition already, the guy making this measurement already knows it's a sphere, you come out with a spherical result.
You don't get the same result with plain trig.
Yeah, you get a different result. That's what I said. A different result with plain trig. So you have to presuppose you're on a sphere when you make this mathematical equation.
You don't get the same result.
Sorry, that's just what I said. You get a different result with plain trig, and then if you insert a radius and assume you're on a sphere and take the measurement, then you get a different result. So the guy making the measurement assumed he was on a sphere.
No, he didn't assume that.
Yes, he did. That's absolutely what happened. Based on an assumption, Brenda.
Science is built on previous facts.
So really? So what were the previous facts then? So if this isn't the measurement, so why are you telling us about this? If there's already previous facts that told him it was a ball, what are they?
It was.
What were they?
The round shadow cast on the moon during a lunar eclipse.
Sorry, that's got sod all to do with anything on the ground or the shape of the Earth, right? If my lights in the sky in my room suddenly have a light shadow cast on them, it does not change the shape of my bloody floor.
If the round shadow cast on...
Sorry, did you just listen to what I just said? Yeah? If I see a shadow in front of a light bulb, does that change the ground I'm standing on?
It changes... No, we're...
Doesn't change anything, you absolute idiot, so there is no inference. Ultimately speaking, you're saying the guy who inserted a presupposition that it's on a sphere decided so because he saw a shadow on a light in the sky.
No, it's not a shadow.
Right. You've just said... there's a curved shadow, and that is the reason why the person making the presupposition, when he makes the measurement, has made that presupposition. Because there are previous influences that suggested, gave him his logical deduction, that the Earth was a sphere.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is a logical deduction.
Right, well, that's not what I'm after. I'm after actual proof, actual scientific evidence, or an actual measurement of a radius. But you don't have any of the above. You've just got your presupposition based on a shadow on a light in the sky, telling a guy who's making a measurement that he needs to decide to make that measurement with an assumption of a sphericity.
He doesn't have to assume it.
He does assume it. What are you getting, you absolute buffoon? He does assume it.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, right. So he just does plain trig, does he? He just does simple plain trig.
He's deduced that the Earth is a sphere.
Yeah, right. So at that point... he's deduced that it's a sphere and he starts making his measurements. He's already decided or deduced it's a sphere.
Yes, that's...
right! That's my bloody point, you absolute idiot! How many times he's decided he's on a sphere, then made his measurements, right? You're saying this is the scientific proof. At one stage or another, somebody decides, because of something they have seen, like a shadow on a light in the sky, that they're on a bloody sphere.
Well, it's not just one observation of the...
Who gives a crap how many observations? Observations are not science. In 2,000 years of people making these inferences, there has never been any scientific evidence whatsoever. Just deduction and assumption. That's all you have.
Brenda, you know, you just destroy your own argument every time you come in here. You just sound ridiculous.
It's a deduction.
Anybody listening to you right now just thinks you sound ridiculous.
We're not asking for evidence from bloody Hercule Poirot. We're asking for evidence of a scientific nature. I don't give a crap what Hercule Poirot deduces. How many times have I got to say it?
It's a deduction.
I know it's a deduction. And I want scientific evidence, you bonehead. Are you deaf?
Deductions are scientific evidence.
No, they are not. Science has a method. Yeah? First step in that method is observe a phenomena, then formulate a scientific hypothesis. That is the method. The only assumption is your presumed cause, which you later go on to invalidate or validate through scientific experimentation, which is a hypothesis test. All of science is hypothesis-based. There is no deduction. Only a presumed cause. The independent variable, the thing you vary in the experiment, that is your presumption. You don't know what you're
talking about.
I know exactly what I'm talking about. You're telling me that Hercule Poirot gives you the shape of the Earth.
He could.
Oh, really? Yes, so can your asshole with sticks and shadows, so long as he assumes it was a sphere to begin with.
He deduced it from observations that
yeah, he saw a shadow on the moon according to you, and that means it's on a sphere. Absolute horse crap, not scientific in any way. Well, he then started making his measurements. So at some point somebody deduced, I'll use your words, he just deduced it. Deduced he was on a sphere. Didn't measure it, didn't get any scientific validity, Just deduce the damn thing. I'm going to deduce it's a sphere, and then I'll start making my measurements based on that presupposition.
No, it's not a presupposition. A deduction is not a presupposition.
It is. He started making his measurements, and then he has a presupposed value. He's got a sphere already. Then he's trying to work out what the sphere does. He's not doing plane trig. He's doing spherical trig.
He made observations.
Yeah, and then did spherical trig based on an assumption that he was on a sphere to begin with. He's already decided he's on a sphere.
The observation is that the Earth casts a round shadow on lunar eclipses, no matter which one, no matter what the orientation of the Earth is. And then they deduced
orientation of the Earth. So what you're saying is the Earth's got an orientation. So you have already presupposed you're on a sphere when you make this deduction. So you've already decided that the Earth's a sphere and it's causing a shadow.
No, they didn't already decide it.
So
based on
you're saying there's a spherical shadow and that is caused by the Earth by deduction. So by deduction, yeah, so they've decided it's a sphere already. It's the sphere causing the shadow. If the Earth is a sphere, then there will be a curved shadow on the moon. There is a curved shadow on the moon, therefore the Earth is a sphere. It's a formal logical fallacy. It is simple stuff.
That's not how it went. That's
if
not
P, then Q. Q, therefore P. If there is a curved shadow on the moon, then the Earth is a sphere. The Earth is a sphere because there's a curved shadow on the moon. Simple. It's a formal logical fallacy. That's all you have.
The Earth casts a round shadow on the moon.
Because it's a sphere, and I've already decided it's a sphere. That's why the shadow's curved, right? Because it's curved. But like the Earth, that I've decided is curved. That's why the shadow's curved. Because I've decided Earth is curved. And there it is with a curved shadow. This isn't a logical fallacy. I've just decided at some stage that it's a sphere. And look, there you go, curved shadow. There's my proof.
It must be spherical.
It must be spherical because I've decided that that curve is caused by the sphere of the Earth. Therefore, sphere shadow, sphere Earth.
The only shape that can cast a shadow on the moon that's round from every angle is a sphere.
The only shape that can cast a shadow is a sphere, and we see a curved shadow. Therefore, the Earth is causing that shadow and a sphere. That's a formal logical fallacy.
No.
Yes. No is not an argument. No is not a position. No doesn't do anything. I have stated your position. You have made a logical fallacy.
No, it's not fallacious.
Absolutely is fallacious. You are putting the horse before the cart. You are making a logical fallacy. You don't have to like it, Brenda. You are just a dumbass.
It's not a fallacy.
It is. If I see a curved shadow on the moon, then it must be a spherical Earth causing it. At some stage, you make your outcome based on your assumption. That is a formal, logical fallacy. You don't have to like this, Brenda. It's tough shit.
The only shape that can cast a round shadow from every angle is a sphere.
This is Nathan Brenda's
The only shape that can cast a round shadow from every angle is a sphere.
So why would you assume that the Earth is causing that shadow as opposed to anything else? Why would you assume that it's a spherical Earth causing that shadow as opposed to anything else? You could have a methodology that rules out other variables. That would be the scientific method. However, you haven't ruled out any variables. You have decided that the Earth is a sphere and causing the shadow. It's a logical fallacy.
No, I haven't. We've deduced that it is a...
Okay, you can call it whatever you like, Brenda. It doesn't matter. You've made an observation and then decided the cause is the sphere Earth.
No.
Yeah.
We made observations and then deduced that the only object that could satisfy those observations
Well, let me
is
tell you something. There is a better way, Brenda. The better way is to make observations and then formulate a hypothesis based on the phenomena that you observe. Simple. Lost the whole panel. Fighting them off single-handedly while I lost all the flat earthers about 20 minutes ago. Now I've lost the whole panel. Nobody wants to talk to me. The trolls don't want me to talk to anybody. Isn't that wonderful? How long have we got left? Let's have a look. 30 minutes. Football's on in about half an hour, so I'll probably lose the audience between now and when this actually ends anyway. Sure, it's worth starting a new one though, so I will. There will be a short intermission. Welcome to the show. I hope you're all enjoying the show. Do you like these calm little moments? Oh, damn it, I've done it on the wrong channel. Distracted and singing Easter songs. Just gonna put the link out on Skype. Hopefully I'll get some friendlies to actually fill up the panel before we go live properly. Say go live. The OBS stream continues regardless, so you can hear the dulcet sounds of Nathan as I set up the next hangout. Ranty is in the hangout, is he? Excellent. Hopefully we'll get a bit of Ranty before the end. That would be a lovely way to round out the show. Hey, Arwin.
Hello.
Hey, Ranty.
Hello,
Hi,
hello,
that's me.
hello.
Hello, hello. Hello, Mark.
That's good, man. Thank you.
Friendlies.
He or she bravely ran away.
Hey, James.
Brave surrender.
Whoever's got their watch page open, please close it.
Might have been me.
We've still got a solid, I don't know, half an hour left, so.
So what's going on, guys? Anything?
Yeah, your footage. Absolutely amazing. You were the talk of me and John and Chris and Anthony yesterday, and then, sure enough, 2 hours before the show, you released an absolutely amazing bit of footage.
Right, okay.
I mean, you should be seeing...
We want you to analyse it and tell us what it's all about.
Oh, I haven't had time to do all that yet properly.
Come on. Look sharp.
Well, if you're going to dig it out, you may not. You're under no obligation. But Ranty basically caught some turbines that were about, I think it was 11 to 13 miles, and at about 19 or 20 to 22 miles, something like that. But in essence, what it demonstrates is the effect of exponential curvature not being demonstratable in actual imagery. All you see is the exact same effect of perspective in both, but with the angular size reduction applied. Both of which are ignored in the curve calculator. There is no accounting for perspective or viewing angles. So, angular destruction of the curve calcs by virtue of the problem being compounded at greater distances. So if you're looking out over a sphere, the further you look, the more ball you will be affected by, because it's getting more and more bally the further you look. Well, when Ranty demonstrates that that isn't what we see, we only see the effects of perspective regardless of distance, only applicable with an angular size reduction based on distance, then that's what you see. You know, seeing is believing. You're just seeing perspective, there it is. And all you need to know if you're a current globe head thinking, is this flat earth stuff true? Well, yeah, they've ignored perspective. So your perspective-based world, that ain't accounted for if you want to live on a globe. If you want to do any maths on anything you see that you perhaps shouldn't, well, you're going to be applying maths that don't account for perspective. There you go.
Yeah,
it really is what you see is what you get out there. It's flat.
I mean, I'm not going to deny there are effects of...
They give great evidence. The turbines are just fantastic for... Because they're the same height. They're the same height. And they're the same distance apart. And they're in it. I can get in an almost straight line behind them. So this is just... It's great to do this kind of analysis with these.
Can you show us?
Sorry?
Can we see, please?
Oh, you want to see what yesterday's the video I put out today?
The one that you were ducked behind the wall because it was windy. You know which one.
Right,
Come on.
right, yeah.
You know which one.
Okay. Oh, the peepee one. The one where I'm peeping around. So that'll be this one. Right, you can tell me when I'm sharing.
Sharing, just talk us through it. I know that you don't give audio through, but if you can just talk us through what we're seeing. And
yeah, well, it was really windy, so I found that if I ducked down behind this wall, I could actually speak, and you know, I'd get picked up on the microphone, because as soon as I stand up and I'm getting hit by the sea breeze, obviously it's you wouldn't have heard a thing that I was saying. But essentially, what I was going to do was look at Barrow Wind Farm, and then behind that would have been Ormond Wind Farm, which was 21.4 miles away to the first turbine, and 23.7 miles to the last one. So I basically say this through the video, and then I basically just show you what I can see from an elevation of 20 feet. So I'm just showing you my location, 20 feet above actual sea level, and then I zoom into them, and I was able to do some calculations, and what do you know?
Nice.
Flat as a pancake, I tell you. So obviously these big ones that are in the foreground, these are the nearer ones. This is Barrow Wind Farm, and the one behind it is Ormond. So when I scroll across to the last set of turbines, which will be after this in a minute, they'll be the ones that I'll be focusing on, because I can get a really good shot. The sun reflects off the hub very well on the last ones. For whatever reason, it just seems to be that way. So
how far away are those, Ranty?
To the first one, well, I'll show you when it comes to it. I'll individually tell you which one they are. The number D1 to D8 in the Ormond Wind Farms. So when I pause this here now, so this will be D1 on the right, and D8 is on the left. D1 was 21.4 miles away, and D8 was 23.7 miles away. Essentially, there's a 0.33 mile difference between each turbine, and they're in a completely straight line with one another. So we're actually looking down the line of them. I know it looks like we're looking left to right or right to left, but it isn't the case. We're almost looking 90 degrees straight down them. It's just this is the effect that we see. And as you can see, you could put a line right through the center of these, and there is no curvature at all.
Right.
What was the observer height?
20 feet.
Right.
Can you just show that, Ranty, just so it's self-contained? So if you can get back to the beginning where you point your camera, just after you stand up, you point your camera down. Here we go.
Yep. So
let it play just for a few seconds because it's really obvious.
I'll just play it from here.
Thanks.
Yeah. And also at the end of the video, I actually go to the and show you the steps, so you can
you've measured each of these steps, and you know exactly how many you've got. So you can, you know, if the tide comes higher at the steps, you know how many steps and how high they are, so you can get an exact gauge each time.
Well, I actually went and I actually measured them. I did a full video of me measuring them. It's, and I think each step was about 7 inches tall. And I effectively worked out that it is pretty much 20 feet to the bottom of those steps from where I was filming off the wall. So they've got all the information in the video. I've put the numbers in, put the distances to each in feet, worked out the curve calcs, etc. So it's all there. But who was it who came in? Adam came in, and what he said was that we should focus on the two turbines together. So when we're looking at the near ones and the far ones, and I kind of agree actually, there should be a difference in the change from this one in the foreground to the last one. And if you put a straight line through that, and then you put a straight line in through the back one, they shouldn't be parallel to one another, because being parallel to one another means that there's no curve at all. If it was a change, because that's an exponential drop on this one that's further in the distance, you should see a different angle when you put your two red lines in. So if you was to compare the two red lines, you'd see that they're absolutely in a straight line with one another.
Well, are the two wind farms built parallel?
That's pretty much, yeah. I mean, I might be able to dig that up actually and show you on Google Earth.
because they're in a slightly different angle, then yeah, the angles may not be the same.
I mean, just for once, I'd like to see one of these wind turbines just bending away from us, like the way Brenda says that they can. Just one. I just want to see one picture of one just bending away.
So here we go. Line of sight between the two turbines. So turbine 1. So this is Barrow at the bottom, and that's Ormond. Essentially, they're almost in an identical line with one another. You know. Yeah. This is a different set of wind turbines altogether, but these are the ones we're looking at now. So the big ones in the foreground are Barrow in this direction. So I'll be looking up them this way. And this is the line of sight to them. So again, this is looking through Ormond. Again, it's the same direction essentially. And that's what we do. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of analysis that can be done on this video for sure. But like I say, every time I go, I'm not seeing any kind of curvature. I can't find curve in my location. So either it's just flat where I live, or it's flat all over. Because essentially everywhere I've been up and down the coast here, as far as Liverpool, looking through to Wales, St. Bees to the Isle of Man, and it's flat.
It's insane how low those turbines in the back look to the water.
Yep, and that's what the Globers will always come back and say, that it looks like they are in the water, so it's obvious that they're going behind the curve. Well, what we've found recently, we know that compression happens at the horizon. So with that compression,
there's waves going on here, very distinct waves. So
yeah,
the slant, the obstruction caused by these waves closer to you will be greater.
And these things should be leaning away from each other also. You know, that they're all at 90 degrees. They're plumb to each other. If they were on an arc and going away from us, the tips of the one behind the one in the foreground to it should be leaning away. The angle on the post would be visible in a photo or video. There's no angle on any of those turbines on their main post. They're all plumb to each other. If things were arcing and going away, it'd be like a fan, the edge of a fan. Everything cannot be plumb to each other. Like I say, that I got a 700-foot tower and it's 12 miles away. It should be leaning away from me. Yeah. Anyone 12 miles away in a circle around it, it should be leaning away from everyone.
If I'm on one end of Manhattan and I'm looking straight downtown to the buildings at the other end of Manhattan, those buildings should be leaning away from me too.
Oh, look at that. There's plenty of warping going on there. The very last turbine, it's almost, the warping starts at the height of the actual turbine. That one.
Right, you're right. You're right in a zone that is just, up until recent times, just not been able for us to look at. We're looking into the area of convergence that is such a narrow, tight band, and analysing in great detail what happens right at the edge of your visibility, where things are being, you know, the bottom half of these poles is being squashed because they've gone beyond, that section of them is too small. You know, the bottom sections of stuff is going to compress at that, right at that point, at that angle. So this effect of things getting squashed when there's a reduction in the viewing angle to essentially nothing is going to still affect the bottoms of these turbines more than the top. That's why when you look at a mountain in the distance, you only see a little bit of the bottom obscured, because that in the distance has gone beyond the angular size resolution of that tiny section, and the chances are there's something obscuring the midpoint, and its chances are there's something at the circle of confusion that will also obscure it. There's all sorts of effects, all optical, that reduce things down to the vanishing point and still leave things that are visible above that. And that's precisely what we get with these turbines. The guys on the globe side just say, well, no, that's the curve of the Earth in the way, even though it's never where it's supposed to be, or it's blocking anything that it should be, even though we can't see any actual exponential curvature difference between any of these turbines on screen. We don't get to see any curvature ever. You know, while it might be spurious to say that these turbines we've had up in the past we should see a curvature in them, and it should be the same as the exponential curvature seen at 13 miles. On screen now, we're only actually seeing the 2 miles of them. So you could, as a disingenuous glober, argue, well, we should see significantly less over this distance. But therein lies the paradox. How can you have something being exponentially curvy and simultaneously look perfectly flat? Well, you can't, because all we see is perspective. That's the only effect at play.
In a sense, it's also what we don't see, and when we don't see it, we have the vanishing point, but vision is finite, or at least objects in a distance have a finite point, a point where, whether it's vanishing point you want to call it, or that finite point, it can vary a bit day to day and even hour to hour, but vision is finite.
I don't exactly
have
agree.
a finite visual. Our ability to see certain things at certain times is limited.
Yeah, but that's not because of the limitation of vision. That's because of lack of air clarity.
The Superman vision stuff is just for the birds. Our eyes are not bionic, and they are not as good as people think.
Yeah,
the
all
Superman eye
tools
can see a billion miles.
That's good. No, it's not
really
true.
is.
No, we only have a limited resolution in which we can observe things. But eyes and all visual, all cameras, all observation equipment can see as far as the air clarity allows. But what obstructs things, due to perspective, is the limitation of the field of view. So if you're very close to a surface that you're looking over into the distance, then the closer you are to that surface, the more it will obstruct the bottom layers of those things in the distance, because it's an optical slant.
So if it's a plane in the sky and one day it disappears at 3 miles and one at 4, then at the same, trajectory and everything, why is its vanishing point changing day to day?
Because it is much higher than you, and as I said, lack of air clarity. The lack of air clarity eventually obscures everything in the far distance because the air becomes too thick to see through.
Can I just add something to that, please, Jimbo? Sorry to interrupt you two, but in terms of the plane, I mean, Arwen's example is, he did specifically say at the ground, but the same applies to a plane in the same respect that if you imagine you had a plane flying, just for easy numbers, at 5,000 feet, and you've also got a mountain that is 5,000 feet high, the further away you get from that mountain, the closer it will become to the horizon, and becoming more and more squashed from the bottom up as the angle that you attack it at decreases, the further you go back. Well, the same principle would apply if you parked the plane on top of the mountain. It would be just part of the mountain then, right? And that as it got further and further away, it would get closer and closer to the horizon, and then eventually just vanish like the boat does, bottom up. But it makes, because that angle can contain a massive 5,000 foot mountain if you're far enough away from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the mountain is so high in relation to the observer that it can be contained by much more of your field of vision, because the field of vision is basically angular. So if you're very close to a surface, then that field of vision below you narrows down significantly. The mountain sticking up in the middle of the open air, it will always have enough room, angular room, within the field of vision to stay visible even at vast distances. So it all depends how close you are looking past a surface. And that also includes, by the way, to a surface above you.
Sure, I agree in theory. If you're on the
ceiling,
ground level,
the same effect applies.
I agree in theory if you've got enough zoom to zoom in on that camera. But let's say you've got a fixed zoom and you can't go beyond it. So let's say with your P900, eventually with perfect air clarity, you would get back far enough. This is kind of the same as the Glober's argument saying you can see your own arse because of refraction. And all we would say is, as long as you've got a clear enough day, you can see very, very far. And that principle does hold true, other than the fact that the item in the distance will still get closer to the horizon. And the only thing that's going to make it bigger in your field of view is zoom.
Am I still presenting, Nathan?
You will be able to see things that are very, very big, high up, like a huge tower or a huge mountain.
Absolutely.
You will still see them.
Just let me add one thing,
partially compressed.
Arwen, please.
But
please.
So I can't hear you, Nathan. Did you say I was still presenting?
Yeah, just trying to get a word in. So, yeah, you're right, Arwin, but the viewing angle to that building, you are presented, Ranty. The viewing angle to that building...
Can I just say, can I play the video?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say, this was me this morning. I went down, it was beautiful.
Just let me get to the end of my point, though, Ranty. So, if you've got a viewing angle to an entire building... your viewing angle to the top of that building is bigger than the viewing angle to the bottom. And the further away, the narrower that viewing angle to the bottom of the building will become. So in other words, it's the same as having a boat on the horizon. If you count the first 25 bricks of that building, they still have a narrow viewing angle at distance. And it varies on the height of the building. So you can have the bottom of the building obscured by virtue of viewing angle being too narrow and still have the rest of it visible. Now, they would call that earth curve obstruction. We would just simply call that the narrowing of the field of vision at the horizon point due to angular size. And the closer you are to the surface, the worse that effect becomes. Yes. Sorry, Ranty, you carry on.
And I called it originally the optical slant. Yeah. And it functions exactly like this. So, yeah, it's fascinating to see.
Good that we're in agreement, not arguing with each other.
The viewing angle, optical sciences, how this works in such detail over this long period.
Yeah, well, the Globers will just take us to their models where we don't see the real world effects, and that's all they'll ever do. But, you know, we'll stick to the real world. Anthony said it once before in terms of when you go and see globehead pictures, it's all models and cartoons, and when you see flat earthers, it's all like this, it's pictures and reality. Same with Anthony's debate yesterday with Sly. All Sly had to offer was models. All Anthony had to offer was pictures, and that's where Sly buggered off, because you can't argue with reality. It's very difficult to. Anyway, Ranty, do you want to take the mics? We'll hopefully.
Yeah, it was literally just to get a point in. When Arwin was saying that it all comes down to the visibility of stuff. Well, I was there this morning, beautiful day. I couldn't see anything of Barrow. It was completely covered in mist, essentially. And even though I could just make out the turbines, because it must be something to do with the angle of the sun. But this is what I actually saw. Normally when I'm looking over at Barrow, I'd have the buildings all on the bottom here and what have you, but can you see? Just couldn't see anything. Just blocked out by atmosphere.
Right.
So it was just to prove. It was just to say that point, and also to say that I mean, I put videos out. I try to every day anyway, but there's also a lot of times I go when I get this kind of weather. Anthony is the same. He says that when he tries to see the Isle of Man, quite often it's all misty up and you can't see anything.
Yeah, just down to air clarity. How clear is the day? Not how much refraction on this day is bringing it back through this mist, because it's obvious on screen right now. It's a misty day. Good stuff, Ranty. Kudos. Again, I don't know if anyone's congratulated you, but you got a lot of plugs earlier before you joined the show, so big props to you again.
Right, cool. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just a hobby in it, I suppose. Going down and trying to get the answers, putting it out for the people to analyse. And
have you bought a house on the promenade yet?
I'm actually buying a house that's much closer to the promenade. So
much closer to the promenade? How can you on the pier?
Well, I live in Polton at the minute, so it takes me about 15 minutes to get there. But when I move house, it should only take me about 5 minutes to get there. So I'll definitely be saving on the fuel.
Jolly good.
Can you give your channel a proper plug, Ranty?
Ranty Flat Earth, that's the one. If you want to search for me, just search Ranty Flat Earth, 3 words, and then hit the subscribe button. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
You might even find you by Ranty. So if you just type in Ranty, you might find Ranty's channel.
Find another Ranty. There's another guy there with like 6,000 subs or something. And
there is, but when you just type in, if you just type in Ranty, it does bring up your channel quicker, believe it or not.
Does it?
It does. Well, for me, it does. It's obviously, it varies from person to person, but yeah. So check out Ranty Flat Earth. That's his channel, and at the moment, he's the star of Flat Earth as far as I'm concerned. He's doing absolutely amazing, fantastic observations, and he's going to stuff that typically would scare off flat earthers. So when we've had wind turbines in the past, all you get is, oh, look, we're seeing the bottom being obscured. And instead, Ranty's going out and looking at it and working out mathematically how this stuff actually works. So definitely subscribe to Ranty Flat Earth. Well worth checking out his channel. Anything else anybody wants to add before I close out this show, before the football starts?
Yeah, I watched a video from a guy in Las Vegas with an IR filter on his camera, and it cuts a lot of cloud and haze and other stuff. So I don't know if that might be an advantage to try one out and see if it actually gets through some of the haze and other stuff on some of the less useful days. It could be a useful filter. It does an amazing job. This guy's video, he's a glober, but he's turning flat fast, but he does some IR zooming and stuff over Las Vegas. You see the Groom Lake, you see, wow, so flat. But just the IR filter is like a miracle.
So is it, what's it doing? It's filtering out infrared.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it just wow, what does it expose? Oh, it's so different. You haven't seen that. Can I post the link?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll post it in the chat. If you post it now in the side chat, I'll post it for the audience.
Okay, give me a second to find it. It's called IR Las Vegas or something. IR.
Don't give him too much flack, flat earthers. We know he's a globe head.
All information, though. It's all something that we can work together to try and find an answer to, globe head or flat earther. So
definitely,
you know, if we're honest with our results and we work together, we can get these answers. When you're dishonest,
only if you're willing to see it.
Now, if you want to know how to measure a doorway, then some globe heads are really useful for that.
Yep.
Okay, let me go to his main channel, and he did two. The more recent one is, let me see if he's got it posted here.
England are playing.
Yep. Game started.
As soon as I get this link, I'm going to round this show out. Not to watch football, because I know I'll lose my audience in great droves as the football starts.
Just to make sure we got the right one. Okay, here he is, and here's the link. Copy, and let's get back to Hangout and paste. Here it is in the chat here. But this is an IR filter at 35,000 feet over Las Vegas from a month ago. He did I thought he posted one yesterday, but I can't find it on his site, but that one should do. And I'll try to find the other one. But this is basically the IR filter in action there.
Ooh.
Where is he? There he is.
Which chat did you post?
Whoops,
that link?
my mistake. That one don't have the IR filter. Be a second.
Sure, I've posted his link though, so people will be able to find his channel. If you've got a few
yeah, because it's important film. That shows like hundreds of miles around and flat as a pancake out over Nevada and stuff in Las Vegas. It's an amazing catch, and it's an amazing filter.
Yeah, flying over Las Vegas was the video. The Earth Master is the channel. Just check him out.
I'll try to find the accurate one.
Right, I'm off to watch the football, guys.
No worries. I think
Catch you
in a bit. The right moment to
maybe
probably round out the show, unfortunately for Jimbo. But yes, with that, I will say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, you know exactly what to do. But if you liked the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!